What's up guys, Block FPL here. Welcome back to another Fantasy Euro video on my channel. Today let's talk about wildcarding for match day 3. Now personally, I haven't decided if I'm going to activate it yet. Here's how my team stands at the moment. I could use 2 free transfers and make this team look decent enough, but whether or not I use my wildcard, I feel like is going to come down to how the Italy lineup looks, as well as the Switzerland lineup, because I have some players from them as well, and they also could be interesting to target the Switzerland players as well as the Italy players, but that's a little more obvious because Italy have been so good recently. But we'll talk a little bit about Switzerland later, as well as another team that could be pretty decent this week. But for now, let's get into my potential wildcard team. So this is how the team looks at the moment. I've got Embolo, Morata, and Juranchuk as strikers. These guys are pretty cheap, but they all have pretty decent fixtures. Embolo has looked good, hasn't quite got that many points yet, but I think against Turkey, he should be able to get a decent amount of points. Morata, well, he's going to be playing center striker. We basically got confirmation that he's going to continue to start. And against Slovakia, he's got a decent enough chance. At only 9 million, it's not that bad. A lot of the more expensive guys, well, Kane I'm not that impressed by. A lot of the other guys simply have tougher matchups, and I think Depay is a rotation risk given the fact that Netherlands are 2-0. They haven't lost yet, so we could see a lot of rotation there, and that would be one reason to activate the wild card if I really feel like Depay is going to be rotated. That's something I would want to avoid. And then Juranchuk, well, Ukraine have actually looked pretty decent attacking-wise, and Austria have given up a decent amount of goals, so again, a pretty great value pick there. Yarmolenko has been absolutely amazing. I don't know what even to say. He's getting in the box for crosses. He finished off the corner, obviously, but he gets in on that left foot. He's making the whole defense's game plan around him, which I suppose could be bad in the future, but he's still been able to get space and cut it in on that left foot and make things happen. So definitely, I think Yarmolenko is probably going to be in any wildcard team I pick at the moment, simply based off confidence alone, as well as decent team and pretty good matchup. Forsberg's an interesting one. I'm not super confident in him. This person could go elsewhere. I wish Forsberg had an easier matchup, but hey, I think he's arguably Sweden's best option. I think Isak is also a great option still, but I think right now there's some better forwards out there for this 1 week. Perisic is in there. Well, I feel like he's really the only viable attacker from Croatia besides maybe the cheap striker. But Perisic, he's probably the most reliable attacker from Croatia, and that's why you are going to spend a little more money here. But against Scotland, this is somebody you probably want to try to find the talisman or whoever you think is going to get points from Croatia. For me, that's Perisic. I still don't expect Croatia to necessarily kill Scotland though, so a double up isn't quite something I'm a fan of as far as Croatian attackers go. The defenders, I feel like some of these guys pick themselves, such as Gozens. I personally think there's no way I would go without Ricardo Rodriguez because of how poorly Turkey have played recently. I've also went with a triple up on Netherlands defensively. The coach has said that they need to continue to work on their 5 at the back. That gives me hope that Dumfries will continue to play, which would be very nice because I missed out on his 14-pointer, so congrats to you guys that owned him. That was a huge score for you. That was sort of like having Hradecki the first week, so absolutely humongous there. I've got Stecklenburg as well as the 2 defenders. I would assume he continues to play. If not, I've got David Marshall on the bench. You can see I also have Havertz, Stones, and Shaqiri. Havertz, I feel like I have to have one Germany attacker, and he's probably one of the most nailed on ones, and in a decent amount of form, I would say. Stones nailed on England defender, who have been defending well in a pretty easy matchup. A little bit too expensive given his lack of goal threat, but I still think if you can fit him in, I think he's a reliable option. And Shaqiri, well, my picking of Shaqiri segues well into my next point, which is 2 teams to target: North Macedonia and Turkey. Now, the reason I've highlighted these 2 teams is because I feel like they simply haven't been that good, and people may still be a little bit overrating them, especially Turkey. The one thing I will say about North Macedonia is I feel like they haven't been able to get anything going attacking wise. This comes from watching the games as well as the statistics, but when you watch them, you can see a lot of times when they're defending deeply, they don't have a great way to get out. it's an isolated striker or it's just a lack of wingers being skillful. That's not to say they haven't scored. Obviously they did, and they haven't created any chances at all. But when you combine this weakness against a Netherlands coach who just said, hey, let's work on our 5 at the back, and we would assume that they would play some starters in this game, I think it's the perfect time to go for a little bit of a risk with a triple up on Netherlands defensively. Even if we can't necessarily guarantee that their attackers won't be rotated, I would still say they're a decent option because of the high upside against what is arguably the worst team in the tournament with North Macedonia. Also, Turkey had been poor. Now, the one game they lost 3-0 was against Italy. But in that game, Turkey didn't defend very well. But let's write that off from Turkey. Even after that, they still lost to Wales 2-0. Now, Wales aren't terrible. They certainly have some talent. I feel like Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale played very well that game. So, can Switzerland replicate that? I think it's possible. I still think that them getting 2 goals like Wales did is, I'm not going to say the most likely outcome, but it's certainly very, very possible. They've got creative players like Ricardo Rodriguez, Mbolo, Shaqiri. Well, I have all 3 of those right now, and I'm going to go all in on the Switzerland bandwagon for this time. I think Turkey should be lacking a lot of confidence at the moment, and all hope should be lost for them. But hey, we don't know how they'll fight back in this next game. That's just something that I'm sort of betting on happening because I think there's some high upside whenever you're playing a team that could potentially be in that mind state. Also, I think Switzerland have looked pretty promising and it hasn't quite worked out for them yet. So that is another reason why I'm going for Mbolo, Shaqiri, and Rodriguez. Hopefully it will work out. Again, this is if I wildcard. I'm not entirely sure if that's what I'm going to do. But even if you don't completely agree with me, I would at least recommend you consider maybe 2, maybe at least 1 of these Switzerland players, because I think it's about time to go ahead and say that Turkey is one of the easiest matchups you can get at this point in the tournament. Now, that wildcard team looked pretty decent, but is it really worth using the wildcard right now? Well, the wildcard would only last 1 week because we get a free wildcard after this week anyway, going into the knockout stages. With that said, I could use 2 free transfers on this team, and of course that would only last for this 1 week as well, and I would get to save the wild card for the future. Now, my issues with this team are Alaba, who plays center back. Depay could potentially be rotated. We don't know if Wijndal is going to play or not. I would assume he doesn't, but if anybody is going to be rotated out of that back line, I would assume it would be Patrick Van Aanholt, because he's a little bit on the old side, and also we saw Wijndal play in the friendlies, and that could be potentially because, maybe they're trying to rest Van Aanholt and not get him injured. So you would assume the same would go for a game like this, that they should expect to win, and they're through to the knockout rounds anyway. So Wijndal has a decent chance of playing. Denier started last game after not starting the first one, so as far as we can tell, we just don't know if he's going to start or not. Probably around the 50-50. I have goalkeepers playing on the same day. Slight inconvenience, but still Stecklenburg with a great chance of keeping a clean sheet. I'm not a huge fan of Ferran Torres, and Lukaku could always be rotated as well. There's some slight risk. CR7 doesn't have the best fixture, but honestly, I'm okay with that. It's still CR7. And then Llorente and Bednarak. Well, Llorente's not ideal, but Bednarak's fine. As of right now, I am certainly leaning towards playing the wild card because I think there's at least a chance that I nail it in the future, and I'm not in a situation where I am now where I have a lot of players that I'm not confident in. So right now I'm leaning towards taking that risk and simply throwing the wild card out there. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching this far into the video. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and I will see you guys at the deadline stream starting about 30 minutes before the Matchday 3 deadline. Bye.